If you have the courage to hear the full nightmare, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to uncover more terrifying stories like this. The moment they stepped inside, all 7 friends saw the same impossible thing in the hallway mirror. Their own bodies lying dead on the mansion floor. The fog had rolled across Salem like a living thing when the group arrived. Ethan, Maya, Jordan, Chloe, Sam, Lucas, and Dev. They stood before the Harrington Colonial Mansion, a 3-story structure rising from the mist like a forgotten skeleton. The wooden beams groaned with the wind. The shutters tapped lightly, as if someone inside was knocking back. A cold breath of air curled through the trees. "Why does it feel like this house is awake?" Maya whispered. No one answered. The front door, swollen with age and soaked in the night's moisture, pushed open by itself with a long, shivering creak. The smell hit them first. Old wood, damp curtains, and something else, something metallic, faint, almost like a place that remembered pain. They stepped inside. The floorboards whispered under their feet, but the air remained unnaturally still. The only sound was their breathing, thick, uneven, growing louder with each second. Then Ethan froze. There, at the far end of the hallway, stood an enormous antique mirror, its frame cracked, silver peeling, its surface cloudy like frozen breath. "Guys," Ethan said slowly. His voice trembled, because the mirror wasn't reflecting them. It was reflecting their bodies, twisted on the mansion floor as if drained of life. No blood, no gore, just stillness, like the aftermath of something unspeakable. A faint heartbeat sounded in the background. Soft, slow thump-thump. Jordan stepped closer, despite Chloe grabbing his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't go near it." But the mirror flickered. A shape moved behind their reflections, fast, crawling low to the ground. A blur of darkness darted from left to right. Sam spun around. Nothing behind them. Only cold air and the breath of the old house. Then, footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy, crossing the floor directly above them. Lucas's voice went dry. "There's someone up there." No one wanted to confirm it, but they had all heard it. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. Then a woman's scream tore through the ceiling. Everyone jumped. Chloe covered her ears. Dev stumbled back against the wall. That came from the 3rd floor. Maya gasped. But nobody's there. Another scream followed, longer, breaking in the middle like someone was being dragged. And then, a whisper slipped down the staircase like a cold hand. "One of you is already dead." Jordan felt something brush past him. Cold, fast, deliberate. He spun around, but nothing. Only fog seeping in through the broken window, swirling like smoke. "Guys," Sam said quietly. His voice cracked. "Where's Ethan?" They turned. Ethan was gone, but his voice echoed from the top floor. The same scream they had heard earlier. Ethan's scream didn't sound human anymore. It sounded like something was teaching him how to die. Maya was the first to run toward the staircase, but the moment her foot touched the first step, the entire railing vibrated, like something huge had just sprinted up moments before. Dust drifted down from the 3rd floor, spiraling slowly like falling ash. "Don't go," Dev whispered. "That scream, that wasn't normal." "But Ethan is up there." Maya snapped, though her voice was already shaking. Another sound came from above. Not a scream, not a voice, not breathing, dragging. Something heavy scraping across the wooden floorboards. Silence. Then a faint breath from the ceiling. Jordan swallowed hard. What if that wasn't him being dragged? What if it was him dragging something? Chloe shivered. Or someone. No one responded. They climbed the stairs, one at a time, each step letting out an old wooden groan, as though the mansion was warning them. Halfway up, the temperature dropped sharply. The air became thin, brittle. Every breath felt stolen. On the 2nd-floor landing, they stopped. All 7 of them should have been together, but only 6 remained. And then, something moved. A flicker, a blur, a shadow darting across the far end of the hallway. Fast, like a person running on all 4s. Lucas whispered, "You all saw that, right?" No one dared answer. The hallway was lined with cracked doors, peeling paint, and broken lamps. But the worst part was the mirrors. Old, tall, antique mirrors on both sides. Some shattered, some scratched, some covered in fingerprints that did not belong to them. Chloe stepped closer to one. "These prints, they look fresh." Sam pulled her back. "Don't stand in front of the mirrors. Not after what we saw downstairs." As if on cue, every mirror flickered. For a second, the reflections shifted. Instead of the 6 of them standing together, each mirror showed a different death. Maya drowning in a bathtub upstairs. Jordan hanging from the staircase. Chloe lying in a pool of shadow. Sam with something wrapped around his neck. Lucas torn from behind. Dev staring at himself, mouth sewn shut. She held her breath, heart pounding, silently pleading for dawn. When morning finally came, Ella noticed other small signs. A child's shoe by the doorway that wasn't hers, a faint smear on the fridge, an overturned chair. She tried to dismiss it. Everyone ignored odd things sometimes, didn't they? But the apartment had begun to claim its presence, pressing against her mind in ways she couldn't ignore. The unease was no longer subtle. It had started to settle like a living thing, whispering that she wasn't truly alone. And deep down, Ella feared she might never be. The third night in her apartment, Ella's nerves were raw. She hadn't slept well since moving in. Every shadow seemed to thrum with life, every silence heavier than the last. Even during the day, she noticed tiny, inexplicable details. Objects slightly out of place, faint cold drafts brushing her arms, a whisper that seemed to come from nowhere. But at night, the apartment came alive. Lying in bed, she heard it first, a faint shuffle from the living room. Her heart skipped, pulse thundering in her ears. The soft, rhythmic creak of someone, or something, walking across the floorboards. She froze, holding her breath, listening as the sound circled closer. Her imagination screamed, but the evidence was undeniable. Something was moving. The room remained dark, the curtains pulled tight against the city lights, yet the shadows seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally. A chill grazed her neck, and she felt a fleeting brush of air, as if someone had just passed behind her. She spun around. Nothing. Only the pale moonlight revealing her neatly made bed and the empty room. Then came the whispers. Low, almost imperceptible, curling around her ears like smoke. At first, she thought it was her imagination. But the syllables began forming words, soft, mocking, playful, yet sinister. You're alone, but not really. They're here. Her stomach dropped, and she hugged her knees, trembling. She tried to leave the bedroom, but the living room seemed farther than it should be. The apartment felt like it had stretched, distorted, each hallway longer, corners darker. A shadow flickered across the far wall. A shape crouched, watching her. She blinked, heart hammering. Gone. Only the whispering remained, now mingled with faint giggles, childlike, eerie, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. Her mind raced. Maybe it was stress. Maybe the isolation was warping her senses. But then she heard it, the cry of a woman. Sharp, desperate, echoing through the apartment. Ella's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to run. She grabbed her phone, flashlight trembling in her hand, and swept the beam across the room. The light caught nothing but her reflection in the darkened window, wide-eyed and pale. The noises didn't stop. Footsteps skittered across the floorboards, the faint clatter of something falling. Dishes? Glass. She dashed into the kitchen. The counter was cleared, but the floor was scattered with shards of glass, glittering faintly in the beam of her flashlight. She stumbled back, heart racing, trying to rationalize it. But rational thoughts fell apart under the weight of the apartment's oppressive presence. By dawn, Ella's eyes were rimmed with dark circles, her body trembling from exhaustion. Sleep had abandoned her, leaving only the apartment's subtle torment. Every room felt alive, watching, waiting. Even in daylight, she noticed fleeting shadows out of the corner of her eye, the faintest whispers brushing her mind, teasing her. Something was here, something unseen. And it wasn't going anywhere. By the fourth night, Ella was no longer just uneasy. She was exhausted, frayed at the edges of her mind. The apartment had become a predator, silent but relentless, feeding on her fear. She could no longer ignore the signs. Objects out of place, drawers slightly open, and shadows that moved independently of the light. Every night the whispers returned, curling around her ears, teasing her, daring her to look. That evening, she tried to settle into her routine. She unpacked boxes, organized shelves, and tried to convince herself that the apartment was just new and echoing. But as darkness crept in, a low creak ran across the floorboards. She froze, listening as the sound circled closer. A faint laugh, childlike, broke the silence. Her stomach dropped. She knew she wasn't imagining this. Suddenly, she saw it. A shadow darting across the hallway, too fast for her eyes to follow, vanishing before she could blink. She stepped forward, heart hammering, but the space was empty. Only the faintest echo of giggles remained, like it had been burned into the air. She shivered and turned back to the living room. The glass on the coffee table was shattered, though she hadn't touched it. The shards glinted in the dim light like tiny, cruel stars. Shadows stretched across the room. A single window revealed the foggy Salem night outside, but it was the mirrors on the attic walls that held their attention. Each mirror was covered in scratches, deep, jagged, almost clawed, but behind the scratches, shapes moved. Chloe whispered, "They're watching us." Maya stepped closer. The mirrors rippled. Behind her reflection, a figure sprinted, tall, thin, impossible limbs, and grabbed the reflection of Dev, dragging him into the glass. Maya spun, but the figure was gone in reality. Only the mirror remained. Suddenly, a screech from the floor below echoed up the stairs, followed by multiple faint screams from other directions. Dev's voice, but also his scream from the hallway, the staircase, and the ceiling simultaneously. Sam's flashlight landed on a corner of the attic. A trapdoor. It leads somewhere. We have to check. Maybe it's him. Jordan shook his head violently. No. The attic itself is a trap. Look at the mirrors. Look at what it does with reflections. We'll all be next if we go down. A soft creaking above them made them stop. They froze. The ceiling floorboards warped under a footstep, multiple footfalls running across the attic, circling them. Chloe gasped. It's everywhere. It's above us, behind us. Before they could react, a scream split the air. Not from Dev. It was someone else, someone still alive. Or maybe a hallucination. A shadow crawled across the floor in the reflection of the nearest mirror. Its face, horrifyingly human, but wrong. Eyes too large, mouth stretched impossibly. Lucas whispered hoarsely. It's learning. It knows we're afraid. Maya's flashlight flickered. A gust of wind from the broken attic window slammed it against the wall. In that brief illumination, they saw Dev's body, twisted and pressed into the corner of a mirror, pale and lifeless. But in the reflection, his head lifted, eyes wide, staring at them. Chloe screamed, stumbling back. Jordan grabbed her arm. The attic suddenly seemed to stretch, longer, taller. The shadows moved faster. Something cold brushed past Maya's neck, sending a shock of pure terror down her spine. A voice, distorted, echoing through the attic. Next, next, next. The friends realized, too late, the attic wasn't just a room. It was a maze of death, breathing, learning, and waiting. The attic wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the mansion's true game. The attic door slammed behind them, though none had touched it. Maya, Chloe, Jordan, and Lucas stared at one another, each realizing the air had thickened, pressing against their lungs like icy hands. A faint whisper began, soft, almost imperceptible, then louder, then dozens of voices, murmuring indistinctly, circling them from every mirror in the attic. 1, 2, 3, next. The words echoed off the walls, stretching impossibly long. Each reflection flickered with distorted faces, not theirs, but smiling, screaming, mocking. The friends didn't move. The sound grew, layered, like it came from the walls themselves. Jordan broke the silence. We have to leave. Now. They ran down the narrow attic stairs, each step trembling under weight and fear. The second-floor hallway stretched ahead, longer than they remembered. Every cracked door whispered, every mirror flickered. Behind them, a shadow darted just out of reach, human, but wrong. Then a scream from the first floor. Not Dev, not Ethan. Something new. Chloe froze. It's not just upstairs. It's everywhere. Every floor. The hallway itself seemed alive. The mirrors now reflected not what was in front of them, but what was behind them. Twisted, clawed versions of themselves, mouths opening wider than possible, eyes stretching unnaturally. Maya stepped toward a mirror. The reflection moved on its own. It lifted a hand, pointing toward Jordan. Before anyone could react, a cold, heavy wind hit her, forcing her back. The reflection remained, grinning. A faint, wet breathing sound rose from the walls themselves. Lucas whispered, "It's learning from us, our fear, our panic. It's copying." They reached the first-floor corridor. The old wooden floorboards warped under their feet, screeching like nails on chalkboards. But the mansion was silent behind them, except for the whispers. Then, without warning, a door at the end of the hallway burst open. The room was pitch black, but screams echoed from inside. Not one scream, but many layered, as if the walls themselves were alive with suffering. Jordan stepped back. We can't go in there." But Chloe moved forward. Her flashlight flickered, landing on a mirror along the hallway. In it, she saw Lucas being pulled backward into a dark wall, his eyes wide, mouth open, his body twisted like the wood itself had grown teeth. "Lucas!" Jordan screamed. He reached for him, but the moment his hand touched the wall, Lucas vanished, replaced in the mirror by a shadow with a face that laughed silently. The breathing grew louder, inside the walls, under the floors, above the ceilings. It was everywhere, surrounding them. Maya's voice trembled. "It's going to take one of us next." A high-pitched whisper hissed directly into her ear. "Choose, or be chosen." The friends backed away, stumbling, trapped between the corridor and the attic staircase. The mansion was closing in. Every mirror shimmered with twisted versions of their friends' deaths, replaying them, predicting them. And then, the whispers grew into a roar, the air thick with shadow and cold. Something unseen brushed past Chloe's legs. She screamed. The mansion didn't just trap them. It watched, learned, and waited for the perfect moment. The corridor had narrowed. Shadows stretched along the walls, twisting in the flickering flashlight beams. Maya, Chloe, and Jordan pressed forward, each step heavier than the last. The air was cold, metallic, and tasted faintly of iron, like fear had weight. A soft scraping sound came from the nearest mirror. The glass shivered, as if something inside it breathed. "Don't," Jordan whispered, but it was too late. Sam's flashlight wavered, and the reflection in the mirror shifted. Not just him, but his body contorted unnaturally, stretching, twisting toward the mirror itself. His reflection grinned, eyes black, teeth elongated. Suddenly, a hand shot out of the glass, grabbing Sam by the wrist. He screamed, but the sound didn't leave his mouth. It echoed, multiplied, as though the mansion was swallowing his voice and spitting it back in layers of horror. Maya and Chloe lunged to pull him back, but the hand tightened, dragging Sam halfway into the mirror. His legs kicked, his flashlight spinning wildly, casting light on the warped reflections of themselves. Then another hand emerged, his own, pale, distorted. It reached for Maya's ankle. The cold wind slammed her backward. The mirror trembled violently, cracks racing across the glass like lightning, reflecting screams that weren't their own. Jordan shouted, "Grab him! Pull him!" But it was too late. Sam's body twisted, his eyes wide in terror, and he was swallowed entirely by the glass. The mirror pulsed, like a heartbeat. When it finally stilled, only a blacked-out reflection remained. The whispers rose, layered and overlapping, echoing across the corridor. "Next, next, next." Maya collapsed to her knees. We can't keep going like this. It's learning, it's predicting us." The walls groaned. The mansion itself seemed to inhale, filling the corridor with the smell of damp wood and decay. The mirrors shimmered, reflecting empty corridors that didn't exist, showing doorways and floors that twisted into impossible angles. Then a high-pitched wail came from the ceiling. Not one voice, but multiple voices screaming simultaneously. They weren't just human. They were warped, fractured, crying in sync with the mansion's heartbeat. Maya's flashlight landed on a cracked mirror across from them. Jordan froze. The reflection showed Sam alive, screaming, running, dragging someone else into the glass. But in reality, Sam was gone. A soft tap, 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 echoed from the ceiling above, slow at first, then faster, closer. Something was running above them, yet the stairs remained empty. The mansion had become a predator, moving unseen, learning every step they took. Chloe whispered, trembling, It's everywhere. The mirrors, the walls, the air itself, it knows where we are." A sudden gust of wind slammed against the windows, and one of the mirrors cracked completely, revealing a shadow inside, reaching out, stretching impossibly, with eyes that burned black and teeth that grinned too wide. Maya screamed, stumbling backward. Jordan grabbed her arm. The hallway stretched ahead, darker, longer, warped, twisting like the mansion itself had grown fangs. And then, another scream from the attic. Not Sam's, not Dev's, a new voice, raw, screaming in terror, echoing down from above. The mansion had learned fear. It knew how to trap them, one by one, and now it toyed with those who remained. Maya and Jordan stumbled forward, their flashlights barely piercing the darkness. Every step echoed unnaturally, bouncing off warped walls and cracked mirrors. The mansion seemed alive, stretching, bending, suffocating. The staircase ahead twisted upward, wood splintering with every step, as if the building itself resisted their passage. Chloe froze. Jordan, it's not normal. Look, Jordan followed her gaze. The staircase didn't lead to the attic anymore. It spiraled endlessly into shadow. Each step reflected in the mirrors alongside them, but not their own reflections. Instead, the mirrors showed them falling, screaming, being dragged into darkness. A faint whisper crawled along the banister. One more, one more. Maya swallowed hard. It's showing us what will happen. A sudden creak behind them made Chloe spin. In the mirror's reflection, a shadowy figure sprinted across the floor below them, faster than any human could move. The sound of running feet echoed from every direction, yet no one was there. The air grew thick, heavy, impossible to breathe. Jordan coughed, gripping Maya's arm. Then came a sharp, wet gasp, a sound like a body struggling to breathe, but drawn from multiple floors at once. Something cold brushed Maya's shoulder. She screamed, spinning, but the corridor was empty. Only the mirrors remained, each reflecting twisted versions of them, their expressions distorted in terror. Chloe whispered, trembling, "It's learning from us. It wants to know how we react, where we'll go." The staircase warped beneath their feet. Every step forward stretched longer, darker, until the walls seemed to close in. A faint scream echoed from the attic above, high-pitched, elongated, raw with terror. It sounded like Dev, but faster, multiplied, unhuman. Jordan tried to pull Maya forward. As he did, a hand shot out from the railing. Thin, long fingers, icy, grabbing his wrist. His scream echoed, layered, bouncing off the warped mirrors. The hand recoiled only for a moment. Then another hand emerged from a nearby mirror, grabbing Chloe. Maya's flashlight flickered. In the brief illumination, she saw Jordan being dragged into a mirror. His body twisted unnaturally, stretched across the glass like liquid, eyes wide, mouth open in silent terror. Chloe's scream pierced the hallway, only to be swallowed by the mansion's cold air. The staircase above them groaned. Something pounded on the steps from below, though there was no one there. A faint breath, slow, deliberate, close to Maya's ear, whispered, "Next, next." Maya backed away. The mirrors along the staircase rippled like liquid. In each, she saw different versions of the deaths yet to come. Hers, Chloe's, Jordan's. Some twisted by shadows, some by invisible hands, some by the mansion itself. The ceiling above moaned. The floorboards groaned. The mansion seemed to be alive, learning their fear, stretching reality, and the next victim was already chosen. Maya swallowed, fighting panic. Her flashlight fell on a long shadow moving across the landing above. Not human, impossibly fast, stretching like smoke. She knew, instinctively, it was coming for her next. The mansion waited. The mansion had learned everything. Every fear, every heartbeat, every hesitation. Now, only one truth remained. No one left could escape. Maya stumbled backward, her flashlight shaking violently. The staircase above warped impossibly, curling into darkness that seemed alive. The mirrors along the hallway shimmered, each reflecting versions of the friends who were already gone, twisted, contorted, screaming silently. From the attic, a scream echoed, layered and multiplied, impossible to locate. It was Dev, Sam, Ethan, and yet not. The mansion had taken their voices, broken them, and returned them to torment the survivors. Chloe clung to Maya. "We have to get out, this way," she cried, pointing toward a door at the end of the warped corridor. The air pressed heavier, thick and metallic. Each breath was a struggle. A faint scraping sound ran along the mirrors, faster, closer, circling them. Shadows stretched across walls, ceiling, floor, moving independently, crawling with impossible speed. Suddenly, Jordan's distorted reflection appeared in a mirror along the hallway, his mouth screaming silently, eyes wide in terror. But in reality, he wasn't there. Something tugged at the air behind them, a cold presence, brushing against Maya's neck, Chloe's shoulder, urging them forward. They ran to the door. It swung open to a long, dark corridor filled with mirrors, mirrors stretching endlessly, reflecting not reality, but their own deaths, over and over, layering them in impossible angles. Maya saw herself in one reflection, pulled into darkness by impossibly long fingers, her body twisting, screaming silently. Another mirror showed Chloe being dragged into the floorboards. Her breath hitched. She tried to scream, but her voice was already inside the mansion, layered with every other scream she had heard tonight. The whispers grew, rising into a cacophony. Next, next, next. Suddenly, the hallway seemed to stretch. The floor warped beneath them, and the walls rippled like liquid. The mansion itself was moving, alive, aware. The shadows lunged, faster than any human could run. Chloe screamed as a hand shot out of a mirror, dragging her backward. Maya lunged, grabbed her, but the hand recoiled only to emerge from another mirror, wrapping around Maya's wrist. She struggled, feeling the icy pressure, hearing Chloe's screams layer over Dev, Sam, Ethan, all the lost ones. If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon for more terrifying stories.